Thank you. We are now recording. Go for it, Carol. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so hopefully you can all see just a plain white piece of paper here that says keeping track. The system consultants got to talking the other day, which is really unfortunate for you all because we have another assignment for you here. But I think this is one that will help you out a lot. And that is, we think that maybe keeping a journal, especially around the development plans that you began with Sandra on our kickoff, it can be really valuable. So I'm going to try and make this go. I'm not even sure that I can make this go as a slideshow, but I will try it here. Okay, because I wasn't able to see it. Okay, so why do you want to keep a journal? Well, along the way, you hear about or think up great ideas, and if you don't write them down, you're going to forget what the great ideas are. You may come across issues that you can't find a ready solution for, and you want to ask other people about, but maybe you don't have a way to talk to people right then. You may have some questions that pop up in any of the sessions that we do that you feel that you would benefit by following up on, and you want to ask them. So keeping track of those. One of the things I see a lot on the ARSL listserv are people questions. What those issues with staff, those issues with patrons, that either you need to think about more or that you want advice on. And then you hear about different resources, things that are out there. Maybe you don't have time to look at them right then, but you want to keep track of them for following up on later. So this is a kind of a way to keep your thoughts organized, because you're all busy people and you don't have time to drop things right then and take care of a lot of this stuff, but you want to track this over a period of time, and you want to get back to the things that can make a difference for you in your library. So let's see if we can go on. So how can you journal? So there are all kinds of different ways to do journals. There are, you can have just a regular spiral bound notebook that you can write in. You can have something that's fancier than that, or you can just keep track of these on your computer or your iPad or your phone or however you want to do it. Whatever is the most comfortable way for you to do this, go ahead and start that right now. I would ask, I guess, I don't know if I can see a show of hands at this point, but are any of you already journaling around library issues? And Robin, if you can see hands, that would help me.
I can. Do you guys remember how to raise your hand on the participants window? There's a little raise hand button down. Is anyone already doing yeah? We've got one hand raised so far. Oh, nope, a few more pop up.
Okay, good.
So,
good.
Yeah, a few.
And I would suggest that when you do this journal, you keep it separate from any personal journaling that you're doing, because if you want to drag it out at a board meeting or something like that, you probably don't want some of the other stuff to be on there. So this should be kind of a separate thing. So
and in the chat, there's people saying there's bullet journaling and different kinds of journaling.
We're gonna get to some of that here in a minute. Right. So one way of journaling, if you're not a real linear person and check boxes don't mean a lot to you, you can do a journal using a mind mapping idea. And as you can see by this one, I hope that you can see some of the smaller print on here, but presentations, meetings, note-taking, so meetings are things that you might want to bring up, things that are discussion information things, planning things that you just want to think about, how you can make decisions on something, All those things can be done this way. And I always think of this as sort of a neuron way of describing the ways. This is the way a lot of our brains work, those of us that are not very linear, so that we can have a lot of different things going on at once. But journaling can be done this way if that's what suits you. And then you can use bullet journaling, and there's a great article, and you'll be able to get back to this slide. So I put this link in here from BuzzFeed that has an article on how to start bullet journaling. So here are a couple of different ways. One of the elements of bullet journaling is to come up with a legend that you can create different categories of things that you're thinking about, like the mind mapping, which is all over the place, but denoting them through a legend and keeping track of your legend at the front of your journal, so that you can go back and figure out your hieroglyphics, so that you know what you're doing. Now this one here is the journal that goes for a week, and I think that this is one of the commercial journals that has the kind of the starting points and stuff in it, but you don't have to get that fancy. You can just use a regular notebook for this. And then the thing about journaling is you want to go back and review it periodically. And I thought that this was a great idea of saying, okay, so what was I thinking about? What worked? What didn't work? What do I want to improve? And then a kind of a plan out for the improvements, and then go on from there. But journaling is only useful if you can go back and look at the things that you've put down in it. Okay. And so lastly, there is no wrong way to journal except this. So this is I thought was hilarious. It's from that article that I put in there. They decide to start a bullet journal. They spend 2 hours looking at journals. They analyze the pros and cons of different pen colors for 45 minutes, make a list of things that they want to include, overthink the list, and then they wind up writing in purple instead of whatever it was that they originally wanted to, and then they say they hate it, and they're going to start all over again. That is not the purpose here. The purpose is you don't have to make it fancy. You just have to make it something that works for you. So whether it's a bullet journal and you can find out more about that, or mind mapping, or you're just going to take a spiral notebook and write things that come up as they come up, and maybe just do it by date, and don't worry about all the legends and what color pen you're writing in and all that stuff, and just be able to have your thoughts down in a place where you can go back to them, and then find a person to answer your questions. Of course, all of the system consultants are available for that, or ask each other. Have you ever encountered these things? I think that these are key pieces for really getting the most out of Apple, and being able to move forward in how you're doing things in the library. So are there any questions? I'll ask real quickly. I suppose maybe I'll be able to, if I stop sharing, maybe I'll be able to see the chat.
Well, Carol, earlier on in the notes, Jackie mentioned that she loves Coggle, and then Jerry K. Hopkins just followed up with what is Coggle. So
yeah, I don't know Coggle.
I'm not familiar. Jackie, do you want to unmute and give us a couple sentences on what Coggle is?
My former supervisor had told me about it, and it's a really neat little mind map, and you can just Google it. It's probably the easiest explanation, but it looks a lot like what you had up there, and you can create as many branches, and you can move those branches around, and if you decide something fits better over on this branch, you can just move it all over, and you can color code things. It's really, because I get really frustrated when I write things out and then I decide something belongs somewhere else, and then I hate scratching it out or moving it or lining out. So for me, I can keep it looking very clean and tidy. So I really like it. It's very useful. So
Okay. Well, I'll try and find the link for that, and I'll send it out to everybody to look at. Any other questions or observations?
Like I said, there were several observations of folks who had preferred kinds of journaling, but otherwise, that was really the only question. So,
Okay.
all right.
Well, I'm going to sign off now because I have I just returned from vacation and I have so many things to do I can't even think about it. So, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Carol. That's that was helpful, and hopefully we can make use of that as we go on through the class.
Yeah.
So we will pivot at this point. Oh, it helps if I hit the share screen button, doesn't it? Technology. So we'll pivot and we'll start talking about technology and what technology you as a director need to understand in your library. So we're going to start off talking about the ILS, ILS standing for Integrated Library System, and that is your basically the software that runs your library. If you're a Nichols library, it's the Koha catalog. I know other North Central uses Verso. There are various other ILSs out there in use. So what I want to do, define the ILS, which hopefully I've started on, and then make friends with your ILS and others who use your ILS. So one of the forums in the classroom is just all you have to do is log on and say, I use this ILS, and you'll find others who also use that. And the point kind of to that is to
oh yeah.
oh, sorry. Okay. The point to that is to so that you know who to call if you have questions or if you want some help with what your ILS is doing. So the reason it is kind of the backbone of your library. It does inventory control, both of materials and patrons, if you want to call patrons inventory. But if you don't, then it's customer relationship management. It's where you put all your patron information as well as your materials and items. And for some ILSs, but not all, it can act as business control software. So you can do acquisitions through it, run orders through your ILS, do inventory kinds of things. For us in Nichols, we don't use acquisitions because that module was added on so late that we all kind of had our own thing going on. So it didn't really help us much, but we do use it for inventory. We do a lot of reports that people can print out and check their shelves to make sure that what's on their shelves matches what's in their inventory control software. So that's kind of what the ILS does for you. So don't forget to go on to that forum and post which ILS you guys use. I think somebody already has, but I haven't actually managed to hop on there and look at it yet. So that is a quick and dirty what your ILS is. Now we're going to move on to troubleshooting your technology. Some of you have technology folks on staff that are going to be able to help you with that. Some of you don't. You are the director and the technology person and the children's department person and everything else. And so having just a basic idea of how to go about the process of troubleshooting is kind of your kind of the goal here. And then probably most importantly, beyond knowing all that, know how to contact the next lineup, whether that's your internet service provider or your regional system or whatever. So troubleshooting is really nothing more than a systematic approach to solving a problem. It's very, very similar to a reference interview, except that instead of trying to ask a human being what exactly they need, you're asking a computer what it's doing. And so it's the same kind of, you're trying to get down to the base issue, whether it's what the person approaching the reference or your desk asking a reference question really wants, or it's what the actual problem is on your computer so that you can fix it. One of the most important things you can do is to remember to either take print screens or write down error messages. A lot of the times they are crazy complicated. They're, if you've ever seen a blue screen of death, if you've used Windows, you've probably seen one of those. But that's where the computer stops. It throws up a blue screen with a bunch of 0x008964 whatever code. That's actually kind of important. If you write that down and let your technology person know what that code was, they can then go to Google and search it. If you don't have a technology person, you can go to Google and put that code in, and it will, within the first page or so, tell you what the issue is. So whether that is, whether that's the part that's going wrong. A lot of times with blue screen of death, it's a bad hard drive, but you won't know that unless you put that in there. So Google is your friend. The other thing that you need to be able to do is to know where and what your network resources are. And for that, I'm talking about where your router, if you've got one, your wireless router especially, is, because sometimes just taking the plug-in that plugs into the wall and unplugging it from the router and waiting 10 seconds and plugging it back in, that fixes a lot of issues. But it's hard to do if you don't know where it is and what it looks like. What we do at Nichols is we actually take pictures of our library's network equipment, so that when someone calls in, I can go to our wiki and check and say, okay, is this the white box or the black box that's not, working correctly? The lights are all off, and we can figure out what exactly is happening. It's a good idea for you to have that kind of information as well. Just, don't have to take a picture because you've got it there, but know which one is the cable. If you've got cable internet coming into your library, know which one is the cable modem and which one is your router, because if your equipment goes bad, you need to call your tech person. If the cable equipment goes bad, you need to call your ISP. So, and these are things that you can either probably call on your regional system to help you with if you do not know where that stuff is. And to continue with the troubleshooting, this is a cartoon from the XKCD, and they have basically a flow chart of what your tech person does when you come up and you say, I can't figure out how to do something. Basically, you just kind of pick one, you try it. If it doesn't work, you Google it. If it doesn't work, again, you go to the next level of technology. If it does, then you're done. That's basically what your tech does. One thing I can tell you from experience is people don't realize we do this. Because we're so used to moving quickly. And so it looks like we sit down and immediately have the problem fixed, but actually we've probably hit a few buttons and tried a few things. We just click those buttons so quickly it's hard to tell. So you will get there if you practice this flow chart whenever you come into issues, which, by the way, this flow chart and the password one, I've got both of them on the Moodle Classroom. So if you cannot figure out what's going on, you've tried your troubleshooting, you've put your error message in Google, or you've looked at your equipment and can't figure out what's going on, your next step is to talk to your internet service provider. And that is going to be the person you pay for your internet. You guys probably know who that is, whether it's CenturyLink or AT&T or Giant or whomever. But knowing who that is important, and how to get a hold of them. On the Moodle Classroom, the Apple class, I have a PC troubleshooting cheat sheet that you can print off and fill out that has the basic information you need when you call your ISP for help. That does not have to be turned in. That is just for you to use, but it's kind of a helpful way to have everything at hand. So when you call your internet service provider, you know what number to call and who to talk to, and the basics of your network so that they can start helping you out. Some stuff that you might come across with when you're troubleshooting. A lot of times your regional system will have a remote connection. Here at Nichols, we use Screen Connect so that we can connect directly to your computer and help you figure out what's going on without having to wait until we can come out and fix it. TeamViewer is another free option that is available if you are ever asked to connect or to give someone access to your computer. That's one way to do it. Device lights, there's no one resource for this other than when you go to identify your routers and your modems and your switches and all that, kind of pay attention to what's normal so that if something goes wrong and you go back there and all of your lights are orange instead of green like they usually are, you realize that that's different. That's a something that is not normal for you. Oh, and Kim mentions they use LogMeIn to help libraries, whereas we use Screen Connect. So yeah, that's another one that is available. So cables, know where they go. A lot of times, like I said earlier, just unplugging the electricity and plugging it back into your device will fix a lot of issues. If that doesn't work, rebooting. If that doesn't work, call somebody. But knowing where your cables are and where they connect can really help. I can't tell you how many monitor issues I've fixed by just reaching up and pushing the connector up a little bit. It had come loose, and that fixes it. So just remember that when things happen, check your cables. Some of the software that you may run into when you're troubleshooting stuff on your computers. There's Task Manager, and in Windows that's Control Alt. I see I'm on a Mac right now, so but I think it's Control Alt Shift will get you the Task Manager. And I see, oh yeah. CKLS also uses LogMeIn, so it's more popular than I thought. So that will let you force close programs if you get something stuck and you open your Task Manager. One of the options is the Control-Alt-Delete. Thank you. I knew somebody was going to know it. Again, being in front of my my Mac, I'm like, well, it's Control-Command what? So yeah, for Windows, it's Control-Alt-Delete, and that is going to bring up the Task Manager, and from there you can go into Applications and force close an application if it gets stuck. Something else that you might want to look into is the CC Cleaner. That helps clean up old programs and files that you might not need that might be slowing your computer down. Google CC Cleaner and you'll find it and be able to download it. And then Google is obviously, like I said, it's your friend when you're looking for information about what's going on. The command line and ping, I'll tell you, there's information about that on the classroom. In lesson 1, I think, where it goes into a little bit of detail about how to bring up the command line. In modern Windows, you can just type in CMD into the search bar and on Windows, and it'll pop right up for you. Ping is a program that comes with your Windows machine that will send a packet out to another place, wherever you decide to send it to. Those you do not have to know backwards and forwards and exactly how to use them, but you should be familiar with the concept of opening up a command line and running command line programs like ping, so that when your tech person does it, you know what's going on. It's difficult to manage someone who says, okay, I'm doing this and this and this, and you have no idea what they're talking about. So knowing a little bit about the command line and ping, traceroute, some of the built-in Windows programs that technology folks use to diagnose connection issues, internet connection issues, is important. And I will say that I did write up a little lesson with screenshots and everything, and it's on the Moodle class. So I encourage you to look through that. Like I said, it's not detailed. You're not going to be an expert, but when you get done, but at least you'll have some familiarity with what's going on, and you'll know how to, you'll know what they're talking about when people come in and say, this is what we're doing. Okay, and I see that CC Cleaner is popular. Carolyn says you'll be amazed how much better things run when you use CC Cleaner, and that's absolutely true. It does clean your computer up and make things move much more smoothly. Okay, so we're going to switch over to policies and security. And I want to kind of give you some familiarity with security software tools, what secure passwords are, and how to create and maintain them. We're going to talk a little bit about potential security and privacy threats, understanding privacy and intellectual privacy issues, or intellectual property issues, and then be able to talk a little bit about the different kinds of policies that are involved with technology, computer, internet, wireless, and then disaster recovery. And Adam from Delaware Township has put a link to the CC Cleaner in the chat if you're interested in grabbing that. So for security, some of the software that is popularly used is Malwarebytes or Spybot Search and Destroy. Those two are both, they'll scan your computer for malware, and that is, software that may have been dropped onto your computer by some kind of website program that you've downloaded from the internet that had a unwelcome visitor, that kind of thing. So Malwarebytes and Spybot Search and Destroy, again, I think both those links are on the class site, are just little programs that you can run to make sure your computer is clear of things that might get past your virus detector. You should always have a virus, some sort of virus detector on your machine. Here in Neckles, we use ESET. Others are of Panda Cloud antivirus that I have used. There are AVG is one. Norton has one. There are a bunch of them out there. So just make sure that you have something. But even the best virus detector, things get through. So that's where Malwarebytes or Spybot Search and Destroy programs come in. And Adam mentioned scareware, which is something that Malwarebytes or Spybot will help you find. That is when you get one of those boxes, you're just kind of randomly surfing along, and up comes a box and it says, you've got a virus, click here to clean your computer. This is almost always somebody, if you click there, you'll actually get the virus. When you get the little scareware box, you don't have the virus yet. But if you click the link on the scareware that says click here to clean your computer, you're downloading a virus essentially. So this is really it's something that, especially for people of a certain age who may not realize, and any patron who doesn't know what kind of virus software you use, they will see that and go, oh no, I don't want to do that, and they'll immediately click. For you guys, you know what virus software you use, so if it doesn't look like it's coming from your virus software, you can not click it. You can know what's going on. But the scareware, and there's also ransomware, which scareware can either put the virus on or lock up a computer completely so that you have to reboot to recover from it. Ransomware is something that's actually hitting libraries. Lawrence Public got hit not too long ago. St. Louis, I forget whether it was city or county, had an issue where they actually had no computer access for over a week because all of their computers got hit with this ransomware, and that puts up a screen that says, pay us or we'll destroy your all of your files on your computer. And this is where backups come in really handy. But if the backups are connected to your computer, like through either a connected hard drive or whatever, they're going to get your backups too. So, and that's what's happened at St. Louis, I'm sure. I think Lawrence had backups, but they didn't work right, which is another issue with backups. So basically, they all just kind of had to wipe their computers clean and start over to avoid having to pay that ransomware. So those are some things that you need to worry about when you're helping folks or doing your own surfing. But if you just put like Malwarebytes on your machines and run it every now and then, that will help keep your computers clear of those little things. The scareware is, just don't click random links. That's all I can say about that. I do have I don't know if you guys are watching the chat, but make sure you unplug USB for hard drive backup. That's what, if it's connected to your computer when you get hit with the ransomware, it gets hit too. So if it's unplugged, it's safe. If it's plugged in the computer, it's not. I'm going to skip over the second one and go back into don't click random links. One of the, there's breaking into a computer right now is really, really difficult. If you've got a good password, two-factor authentication, you're safe from being hacked. It is very difficult to hack those kind of things. So what the bad guys are doing, instead of trying to break into those things, is they're sending you emails called phishing emails with a PH that look legitimate and ask you to click on them and give them your username, password, all of your information basically, and like you're logging in. It is much easier to hack a person than it is to hack a computer these days. So one of the things that I know this is kind of screamy on the internet with the all caps there, but clicking random links is so dangerous. If you're not expecting a email that has information, if you're not sure about the information, you can, if you get, say, an email from your bank that says click here to reset your password because we've been hacked, that's going to set off warning bells in my mind. I'm going to go and type in my bank's URL into my browser and go and see what they say on their website. If it's real, they'll have hey, we got hacked, click here they'll have it on their website. Most of the time, however, you will find that the bank has no idea that that email was sent out, and it was from bad guys trying to get your information. And that happens with Gmail, that happens with your banking, that happens with your Facebook account. I mean, everything we have these days is vulnerable to being phished. So that's actually kind of current information. That leaked NSA report that just came out the other day about the Russians hacking into our voting. They weren't trying to break our passwords. They sent phishing emails to voting elected officials trying to get their information. That's how they did it. As far as I understand, they didn't get in because the people nobody fell for the phishing lure. But that's the most common way to try to hack into computers these days. So don't click on random links. If you're not sure, go to the website directly and type in the URL as opposed to clicking through a link, because they can make websites look really, really legitimate, and it's hard to tell. So that's my firm bit of advice for the day. The other thing is passwords, keeping them. If you follow proper password etiquette, using a different password for every service, and using a strong password for every service, you will find that keeping up with your passwords is almost impossible. So you might want to use a password service. LastPass is what we use here at Nichols. There's also OnePass and KeyPass. LastPass I really like because they actually did get hacked not too long ago, and no private information was. They have so many layers of security that they couldn't get into our information, basically. So that was kind of a nice thing. So you'll want to, LastPass, for example, and I know others work this way, you can get a little extension for your browser like Chrome or Firefox to install, and then every time you come to a login page, you type in your username and your password, and LastPass says, do you want me to keep this? And you say yes. And next time you come to that page, it will automatically fill in your username and password for you. What you need to remember is that master password that hopefully is very strong and complicated, but it's the only one you have to remember to get into LastPass or OnePass or KeyPass or whatever you use. So those are all excellent issues. And finally, for security, part of the security is intellectual property issues and copyright. As librarians, we have, we're not really the gatekeepers, but we should understand what is and is not acceptable for use with copyright and intellectual property. So we're not police. We don't do the you know, aha, I've caught you copying one extra page out of that book or whatever. But it is important, if someone comes and asks, that you understand copyright and fair use and intellectual property, and what is and is not acceptable in libraries. And quite frankly, we have a pretty, as libraries, we have some leeway there. There's a lot of copyright stuff that libraries have special mention in laws. So we can allow people to make copies of copyrighted books, and we can allow people to, well, we can make copies of DVDs and CDs and things like that for backup purposes of our own. But this is kind of one of those, you should be able to understand what is and isn't acceptable in the library. And most of the time, putting up a sign is enough. If you put up a sign saying, please don't copy more than 10% of any one book next to your copier, you're covered. That's fair use allows 10% or so of a copyrighted work to be used. And then intellectual property, I think of that as, we used to have somebody who'd come to the library, check out CDs upstairs, bring them downstairs to our computer lab, rip them onto their iTunes iPad, and then take them back upstairs and turn them in. While not legal, we didn't stop people from doing it, but if they called us over and asked us to help, we would tell them that we could not assist them in breaking the law. So yeah, exactly. Do that at home. Why drag us into your illegal actions? But the way we handled it was, we're not the police. We didn't go and tell them that this was illegal, but we would not help them do it either, because it was an illegal action. So that's kind of what I'm going with you should be able to understand what is and isn't legal in the library, and there should be some resources again in the classroom for that. This is another XKCD cartoon that talks about passwords and how Troubadour and 3 is not as safe of a password as correct horse battery staple. It's long, it's got spaces. A lot of passwords allow spaces now, which is great because I tend to use sentences. This is not my current password, but my previous password in LastPass was, it had, I think, Rocky and Apollo are, oh man, now I can't remember it because it's a different one, and I've forgotten it, but it used both my dogs' names, Rocky and Apollo, and I think it said something about Rocky and Apollo are the cutest dogs ever! Exclamation point. That has spaces. It's long. It's 28-ish characters. It was something I would remember, but it would be very difficult for someone to actually guess. You can do that. You can do, like they say, for random common words that you'll remember, however you want to do it. But what we suggest at Neckles is, no Ivan Drago. But what we suggest at Neckles is sentences are great, especially sentences that have punctuation, like, you know, parentheses or apostrophes or whatever kind of, that makes it just a little bit that much more difficult to remember. So that is, again, this is how to create good passwords, and it is available on the class site. So policies for security, do you have them? You should have a filtering policy. Here at Neckles, we use OpenDNS to provide filtering services for the library. Whether you offer it or not, there should be a policy explaining what you're doing and why. That way, if someone comes to you and says, why can't I access this website, you can explain that, you know, it doesn't meet, you know, it's been filtered or whatever. One of the things that is required by law, by the SIPA law, is that if you filter your machines, you should have a way for adults to get around it. So if an adult comes to you, that's, you know, 18-year-olds or older, and says, can you unfilter the machine? I need to access information that has been filtered. You have to be able to do that. This is with OpenDNS, we've got a little script that does that. It changes the DNS so that you're no longer filtered. Theoretically, what adults are going to do or what adults are going to do, but in practice, what we used to do at the computer center was people would come up and ask to be unfiltered. We would unfilter them, and we would be aware of what they were doing. Not necessarily standing behind them and watching, but keeping an eye on things and making sure that there was nothing, despite the fact that they can unfilter, that still doesn't mean they can watch porn on our computers. So if they ask to be unfiltered and then immediately went to a porn site, we'd be like, nope, sorry, you gotta go. but there are legitimate reasons not to filter. If you're doing breast cancer research, you're doing a paper on breast cancer research, a lot of sites are filtered because of the word breast. If you are looking up, we had a sewing website that was filtered because it had sew exchange, and in the URL the word sex was in there somewhere because of the way the words were put together, and so that was filtered by our filter. So there are legitimate reasons. Filters do over filter sometimes, and sometimes they under filter, so keep that in mind as well. But having a filtering policy, having a porn or obscene materials policy is in your best interest. It's kind of a cover your butt kind of thing. If you have a policy that you can point to and that you apply fairly, you're just in a better position. You should have an internet acceptable use policy. That's where you might put your filtering policy. This should include wireless use. Even if they are in your library using your wireless on their device, you can still say no porn. You can still say that whether they're on their device or not, if they're using your wireless, you have the right to restrict what they look at. So that is there. Computer acceptable use policy is that kind of covers the no damaging the computers, no use of extra peripherals that, we found a keylogger in one of our computers. It's a little USB thing. Somebody had tucked it into the back of the computer and it was recording every key stroke that computer made, including passwords and things like that. That would be a violation of a computer acceptable use policy. Also, making threats online. I mean, those kinds of things are not acceptable to use the library's computer for. And again, having that in a policy is a way to cover your butt. Finally, in the policies, there's a disaster recovery plan, sample plan on the website, in the class website. This kind of, it can be as complicated or as simple as you want, but having some idea if the building burns down or if the library floods or whatever happens, do you know what you're going to do? This is beyond just technology, but there should be a section in there for what happens if you get hit by lightning and every single one of your computers is fried. What kinds of, where do you go next? Again, like I said, there's a sample one to kind of help you if you want to get started on that in the classroom. Okay. Okay, so Anna asked if putting something like XYZ library does not permit any illegal activities on its computer specific enough. Yes, you do not have to go into detail as to what you do and do not accept. If you just want to say, if it's illegal, you can't do it, that's perfectly acceptable. So, okay, so we're gonna finish up, I think, with the website. So, right, okay, Carolyn brings up a good point. Adults accessing pornography is illegal. We do have the right to access pornography in this country. However, as a library director, you have the right to not allow it in your library. Because there are children around and because it's a public place, you can say, so we do not permit any illegal activities or explicit materials, as Carolyn said. That's a great way to put it, because, and actually those would be the computer use policy for the illegal activities and the internet use policy for the porn would be good ways to handle that, because because that is, while it is legal for adults to do, it is something you cannot allow in your space. So, yeah. So your website is important, and something that you will use to communicate with your patrons. So we want to understand how that works. Your website should have information that is up to date. Should have your phone number, a link to your catalog, and a list of the services that you offer, possibly. Current schedules, so if you have story time every Monday and Wednesday at 10 a.m., that should be on there. If you want to have event calendar kind of thing, that's a good place to put it. You should review it on a regular basis to make sure it's current. At least once a month if you're putting events on there. If it's just there's a difference between having a website that is fully realized, all kinds of information, event calendars and new books and all that, and having a brochureware site. There's nothing wrong with having a brochureware site. Especially in the age of Facebook, a lot of people choose to have a static website that they don't have to update, but once a year to put new board members or to add a new electronic service or something like that. And then all of their current information goes to Facebook, and that's perfectly acceptable. But if you do have a full website with all kinds of information, you should review it monthly at least for events that have passed that you can get rid of. You should review it for your board information. Open records requirements require that you have board information available. Whether you do that through your website or not is up to you, but if you are doing it through your website, that's a good way to publicly distribute the information about who's on the board, minutes of the board meetings, whatever you want to do. And then I would suggest that your hours and a map to your location would be also good things to put in, whether you have a full-fledged website that you update weekly or a brochureware site. So those are some of the issues, or some of the things that you should have on your website. You can get a free website through Clow. It's WordPress hosting for Kansas libraries, and it's managed through the Nichols office. It started before I got here, so at least 6 or 7 years ago, when there were very few options for website development. There are a lot more options now, so some libraries are choosing to go with Wix or Weebly are two options that are in use, and that's fine. That's, because there are more options, Clow is not as necessary as a service anymore. But if you choose to use Clow, you will get a custom domain name. They're $15 a year. And it comes with technical support from your regional system. Whereas if you branch out on your own to do other things, we may not be as able to help you. So those are just some options. And I was thinking website was about it, but I forgot about technology planning. Oops. So having a technology plan is really, really important. At Nichols, we require that every library have a up-to-date technology plan and that they submit it to us as part of their accreditation process. Even if your system doesn't require that, it's still a really good idea to have one and to, oh, wait, it was a short one. So it's a really good idea to have one. For just a basic technology plan, for me, what I require from our libraries is just a hardware and software, or a hardware and computer, network hardware and computer replacement plan. So we suggest anywhere from 3 to 5 years you replace your computers. Network hardware can go a little longer, up to 7 years sometimes, depending. But you should have a plan. You should be able to say, okay, we've got 8 computers. We're going to replace 2 of them every year on a 4-year rotating basis. That needs to be kind of laid out so that you know how to budget for the upcoming years. And then maybe every 7 years you replace your switches or routers or whatever. You may want to replace your wireless routers a little more often than that, but if you have questions about that, you can talk to your technology folks at your regional system. But you definitely want to have that plan. And then besides the replacement plan, some goals. When I talk to librarians in Nichols, what I suggest is that you at least include one goal for education. So you have a goal to attend continuing education programs, 3 times a year, or every staff member gets 1 or 2 hours a month to attend webinars, take tutorials, do that kind of thing. But you have some kind of plan to continue your technology education, because technology is moves so fast that keeping up is difficult if you don't make a concerted effort. So I always recommend at least one of the goals be educational, and then just have some stretch goals. If you've been doing computer classes, maybe you want to extend that into a curriculum, the formal, series of classes. Or if you have 5 computers that are always busy, you want to try and maybe up that to 7 computers in the next 3 years. Or, just kind of have ideas for growing, and that's what your technology goals are going to be. There are sample plans. There is a sample plan, actually. I think there's only one plan available on the Moodle site. It's fairly short and sweet. It just has some goals, some computer replacement. That's really all you need. The only thing I want to stress here is that you can remember that your technology plan is your technology budget in narrative form, and vice versa. Your technology budget should reflect your technology plan. Otis asks, if you don't have room to grow, is keeping up-to-date computers good? Yes, and honestly, with the keeping them up to date is important, and yes, that's perfectly acceptable. But with the growth of personal devices that are coming in, sometimes actually reducing the number of desktop machines you have would be acceptable. If they're never busy, if you've got a couple that just never get used, maybe you could use that space for something else and you can get rid of those machines. But you need to at least then have your wireless maybe pumped up so that you can support the people who come in with their own devices in that case. It's entirely based on what is best for your library and your community. And Kim says that having a technology plan makes a library more prepared when technology grant opportunities come available, which is absolutely true. A lot of grants want to know what your plans are, and if you haven't already stopped and thought about it and put it down on paper, that you're not quite as prepared to grab on those. So, and she said that, yeah, her libraries are also finding that desktop computers aren't as necessary. I don't think we're at the point where we can get rid of them completely. I think we do need some for those who do not have devices or who need printing, which is difficult to do from device or whatever. But I just don't see them being used as much in most communities. Not all. Your community may be constantly using your computers and you need to add them up. So yeah, Carolyn's like, they're busy all the time, in which case you might want to contemplate how you'll support that in your technology plan. So Otis wants to know if any of you all have tablets or pads for patron use. I know some libraries have laptops. I know our Tonganoxie, I think Atchison, also has laptops. Delaware Township has a tablet for patron use. So yeah, there are a few, and those are also good replacements for desktops sometimes. So, okay, most of what lessons 1 through 3 consist of in the Apple class is what I've talked about today. Maybe a little more detail in some places, but it's generally just kind of a review of what I've gone over today. So after this class, you can download and fill out that PC troubleshooting cheat sheet. You do not have to turn it in. That's for you to use. There's some supplemental readings. You can read them or not. It's up to you. Some history of the ILS, and just kind of, if you're interested in that topic, you can certainly do that. There are 2 forum discussions. I talked a little bit about the ILS one, but there's also a security one where we can talk about what is and isn't safe to click on, and how to identify URLs that are not kosher. And then there are 3 assignments, one of which I'm going to ask you to do to pass this module. There's a Learn One, Teach One, where you learn a database or a e-content service that is provided either by your system or the state. So I've been really kind of digging on Explora lately. It's a really handy database for public libraries. It's a single stop research place for kids. It's a great homework help thing. So if you go in, figure it out, and then teach it to someone, and then go to the Learn One, Teach One forum and talk about which service you learned and who you taught, whether it's one of your staff members or a patron, whichever. That will satisfy the homework assignment for this month. Or there are 2 website assignments. One is coming up with kind of a schedule of updating your website, something that would fit into a technology plan. Say, every month you'll go in and you'll update the events, and every 2 months you'll check this, and however you want to do it. Or you can go and find 3 websites that you particularly like or don't like. Although if you're doing the don't like, try and go outside of Kansas for those, and come back to the forum and talk about what you liked, what kind of features you would like to have in your website, or what you didn't like about those websites. So it's kind of a first step to updating your website. Carolyn said she was interested in updating her website there at McLeod. This would be a good start to go and find other libraries' websites that have features you like, and see about incorporating those into your website. Or, like I said, finding a website that you don't like and you don't want to do. That's just as important as finding stuff that you do want to do. So we did have a little bit of a discussion on the chat about in-house or checked out tablets. It looks like in-house use is pretty popular. Jackie and Atchison said that the iPad checkout for home use led to stolen iPads, so that stopped. That is an issue. I know Leavenworth has that issue with MiFi devices. They had a bunch of them, and now they don't. So that's an issue with people taking your equipment out of the library. But in-house use seems to work well. So that is a good thing. So are there any questions about what I've covered very quickly here? And Anna mentions that my final slide was a little busy, and there were lots of options listed there. But the Apple Success rubric that is on the homepage of the Apple site, that's up at the top left corner, is much clearer than that final slide. So, and I just want to be sure and reiterate that there are 3 assignments. You have to do 1. You do not have to do all 3. If you want to, that's grand. I'm not telling you not to, but to get credit for the class, you just have to do one of those. I want this to be useful for you, so I'm giving you kind of some options. Oh, the final, it was cut off. Okay. Anna said that my assignments were cut off. Actually, it wasn't just because it was wordy. So thank you, Anna. And Kim says that Coffeyville hasn't had any of their MiFi devices stolen. Carolyn, I can see you searching very hard. I am at home. The whiskey behind me is not in my office, I promise. I can see you looking really closely at the screen there. I am at home today. I took the week off to clean my house. I spent the morning pulling apart and scrubbing my refrigerator. So yeah, that is my home collection of whiskey, not my office collection. That's in a drawer. So okay. So any other questions? I understand, Carolyn. All right, well, we ran a little bit over, but I will go ahead and stop the recording.